Hello, I'm the Angry Spork, taking issue with the last issue of DC vs. Marvel. Heroes and not quite heroes were forced to fight to decide the supremacy of their respective universes. In between was one Axel Asher, discovering he had the power to become the Access, a bridge between worlds. And just as the fighting had stopped, the universes merged. And since that obviously didn't stick, let's see how they got separated. I think they tie a string around one half of the merged universe and the other end to an open door and then slam it real quick. But I haven't read it in a few years, so I could be wrong. The cover features a handful of the merged characters at the top, and as we move down, we see 3 of them being separated into their individual selves by what looks like a pink-purple energy fissure. One thing that always struck me as odd was way in the background, behind Angel Hawk. It's supposed to be Apollo, but he's so small with so very little detail elements from the Ray, he just looks like Cyclops. And then there's Deadeye. Remember last week when I reviewed Assassins #1 and he died? How's that gonna play out when the universe is split? Are Deadshot and Bullseye going to be goners? Or because it was a merging of 2 people, each of them will only be half dead? Same question for a lot of merged characters from that issue, actually. We open to a splash page, basically picking up where Darklaw #1 left off, in pursuit of his arch-nemesis, while captions show off the definitions of amalgam, hyena, and, well, Darklaw is not in the American Heritage Dictionary of the English language. He is unique and undefinable, and much prefers it that way. And according to my version of Microsoft Word, undefinable isn't a word at all. Someone clearly meant indefinable. But hey, fun ironic typo. Claw throws an explosive, but it gets batted away and descends upon a crowd of citizens below. That's when Super Soldier deflects it with his mighty shield. Isn't it fun when they shout your name in fear? Fear I can relate to. I never quite got the hang of fun. Yes, neither did they. Nearby, the old guardian of the portal, whom I've dubbed Patch, is looking like he's about to be wrapped up and put inside a cursed tomb in an Egyptian pyramid. And he realizes that the brothers didn't merge the universes. Turns out, according to a splash page, it was each reality's universal guardians, the Spectre and Living Tribunal. And the brothers are not happy. While the heroes continue to chase Hyena, Access is bearing witness to the struggle the Guardians are enduring in order to prevent either universe from being destroyed, but is also unable to mentally process it. By instinct, his powers kick in and he returns to the alley where the old gatekeeper is waiting. The old man is pulled on some strings of fate to draw Super Soldier and Darklaw nearby, so it'll be up to Axel to finish the job, even if he's unsure of how to do that. He concludes his job by grabbing his successor's arm, and as he fades away in a silent explosion, he says his name is Morty, and he's glad that they met. Are you sure it's not Patch? Come on, I'm a seldom viewed comic book reviewer on YouTube that wears sunglasses indoors. Don't make me look stupid. Hyena shows up intending to take Access hostage, but the kid just creates a portal to make him go away, and Darklaw doesn't much like that. When he and Soldier approach him, Axel, now charged up by the last of Morty's powers, grabs their arms and says that he'd hidden a fragment of each of the original universes inside them, and is giving Spectre and Tribunal access to that power. In other words, let there be jazz hands. Light. Dang, and I was only off by 3. Against a background of some kind of energy explosion, I imagine, a quasi-panel of amalgam characters shows some of them cleverly torn apart like paper, and we finally see them back to normal on a following 2-page spread. The background is similar, but more orange, and the almost lightning-like plasma from the previous page is much more abundant. Access is caught in the wake of the strange occurrence, his face looking a lot more grizzled and hard-edged than usual, until he lands in the same alley, with Captain America and Batman their own selves again, and looking for answers. We got to Mole Man attempting to claim the Batcave, with only the Hulk to challenge him, however he got there from underneath the rubble of his fight with Superman. And now his clothes are spick and span.
This cave is pleasing to us, and I think you would be well served to leave. Now!
Oh, is that what you think? Well, here's a penny for your thoughts.
The diminutive, underdwelling villain then orders the use of their greatest weapon, a big gun, while his less squashed minions try to overpower the Jade Giant. That's when Superman comes in for an unexpected but welcome visit. This place happens to belong to an associate of mine, so I'll thank you people to vacate immediately. And yes, I know I just busted a giant hole in the wall, but we're friends, it's okay. And he's got a butler, he can handle this. Soups admits he's still kind of feeling his earlier fight with Hulk, and when it looks like Molly's big red laser beam isn't doing squat, they all hightail it. Back in the alley, Access explains that he wields a small trace of the core power of both universes, which he'd hidden in the Dark Knight and the Star-Spangled Man, while Morty helped him get somewhere without a trace of the brothers. Meanwhile, Spectre notes to Tribunal that while they're safe, there's still overlap between realities, leaving some people in different places than before, which actually explains Hulk's sudden appearance in Batman's basement. Golden Man-E Faces says they need to get the brothers to coexist, or they've only delayed the inevitable. But all they can do right now is look in awe as they reach the entities on a 2-page spread, doing battle with intensity previously unseen by either Guardian. For as ridiculous as some might find the concept of the brothers embodying the respective comic universes, this scene has a nice epic feel to it. You can see the fiery trail of their swords, the shockwave of the collision, the searing effect it has on the celestial bodies around it. It looks slick and succinctly denotes the gravity of the situation. Meanwhile, on one of the Earths, J. Jonah Jameson and Perry White, seen here looking more similar to each other than I've ever considered before, are confronting Wilson Fisk about his interference with their people, but Kingpin just literally tosses White aside, reminding him to clean out his desk as he'd been fired. Spider-Man swings onto the scene, and in an odd turn, a crime boss that I usually see able to separate his legitimate and underworld personas openly admits within earshot of the likes of Lois Lane and Jonah, i.e. journalists, about pitting himself against the wall crawler more than once. Seems like that slip could be used against him later. But Superboy intervenes, recommending Fisk sell the planet back, tossing him aside and busting the scoreboard used for fights in earlier issues. Though feeling unappreciated, Spidey has to give props to the teenage superclone, and doesn't seem to notice Lois checking out his costume. Also, Robin and Jubilee make out in Venice. You know, in a weird kind of way, technically this means there have been 3 female Robins. But still only one that DC has the spine to admit existed at all. Thanos is wrecking a city looking for Darkseid, while contending with Lobo and then Wolverine, who aren't too distracted by the despot to snipe at each other. And as the Lord of Apocalypse makes his entrance, looking for his purple counterpart, heroes that once battled each other now tackle more serious threats, including the 2 galactic powerhouses facing the likes of Thor, Storm, Silver Surfer, Green Lantern, Wonder Woman, and Captain Marvel. For Odin, for Asgard, stand down and surrender. There's fire in you. I like that. I'll destroy it, but I like it. Apparently you must have the folly of your resistance emphasized to you. Have at thee, then! Now, I've never been a big follower of Thor, but here's what I love about this scene. He gets threatened by one of the biggest bads in DC, who fires his Omega Beams, which don't stop until they reach their target,
And the Odin son basically gives the Asgardian equivalent of, "So it's gonna be like that, huh?" while deflecting said infamous beams. And I think that's pretty cool, regardless of universe loyalty. Or his costume.
And if maybe you're the type that doesn't like that he managed to deflect those beams, don't worry, he gets hit with another volley, dropping Mjolnir as narration notes the dramatic effect the battles are having across the globe. Thanos says he'll get to Darkseid soon enough as he tosses Diana aside. She takes a moment to hand Thor his hammer, and hilariously, it takes him a moment before realizing what she just did. But suddenly, all battles stop as a bleak fissure rips open above, and the sky begins bleeding.
Probably like cosmic space blood? I don't know, what do I look like, a space hematologist?
Captain America insists they stop the brothers, but the now formerly atheist Axel is hesitant to argue with godlike beings. However, bookended by glaring crime fighters, changes his mind, and he transports all three of them to the epic duel, their costume minds only taking in what they can grasp. Access explains they're more or less on a plane of consciousness where deja vu and the types of thoughts and fears everyone has comes from. Essentially, it's in their heads.
For some reason, I'm comfortable with that. This is easily the fourth least outlandish concept that's ever passed through my head.
Meanwhile, 2 Earths worth of heroes feel helpless, only wanting to be by the side of those they care about. Even the Man of Steel showing up at the Daily Planet as Clark. And when given permission to take one final shot at Spider-Man, J. Jonah Jameson apologizes.
Jonah apologized to Spider-Man? That's it. All reality is doomed. Nothing's going to be saved. I'm out of here.
Barely seen trying to stay the brothers' blades, Spectre and Tribunal are doing all they can, but for all their power, they aren't doing much. When Batman confirms this is a cosmic state of mind, a weirdly chipper-looking Captain America suggests they change their minds. While others are privately reflecting on their regrets and fears, Thanos alone takes joy in what he witnesses. But in the unreality, Cap and Bats make their move to intervene. To mortals, they have often seemed more than mortal. Here they are dust motes with attitude.
And thus Zordon chose them to become the Moti Morphin Dust Bunny Rangers.
The heroes' plea go ignored as cosmic swords clash again. Their mortal forms are pierced by the resulting beam fragments. And you know that phrase about your life flashing before your eyes? That doesn't only happen for Steve and Bruce. Each brother sees the other universe's hero being forged into a force for good, to protect those unable to fight for themselves against malicious forces. One among many, but forever unique.
Yes, we know that Batman has a lot of derivative elements to him. And Cap came out during a time of heavy propaganda, much of which was sadly racist. And they beat people up, and violence, and blah, blah, blah. Look, no one cares about an independent thesis on sucking the joy out of things, so keep it to yourself, internet trolls.
With a renewed vision, the brothers look at each other. Billions of years pass, and for the first time ever, they speak.
You've done well.
Just watch those reboots. Hey, we did it again. Okay, stop it now. Stop it! Stop! That's it!
And even though that took a super long time, don't worry, because those billions of years fall back upon themselves because comics, and things get back to normal, even though no one's entirely sure exactly what happened. We see the teen lovebirds upset at their separation, Tim apparently busting a monitor over it.
Look, I know Bruce can afford it, but really? Knew her for how many days? I mean, maybe I'd be more invested if their relationship had gotten some development. And I know that teenagers can feel these emotions rather strongly, but I don't know, smashing a monitor just seems a bit excessive.
Some seek answers from higher powers, some are higher powers, but have none to give. Rulers realize the limited size of their kingdoms, and two in particular are humbled by their experience. Meanwhile, Access, having apparently considered himself a seeker of truth, funny, he seemed more like a wandering loner, but whatever, now that he knows the truth, he chooses to reject it, and instead takes up a quest traveling between universes. And when the universe beckons, which of us could say no?
That depends. Which universes are we talking about? Because I've seen some doozies we'd all be better off without.
After the story are more bios, but this time of the writers and graphic artists working on the main four-parter.
Bringing the biggest crossover ever to a close. I still find it an entertaining read, even with its flaws, some of which stem from being a product of its time.
As I've mentioned before, there was a style of drawing women that was much more pervasive in the 90s than I feel it is now. Don't get me wrong, comics today still find one excuse or another to show a woman in her underwear, or partially covered by a towel, or posed unnaturally to show off what her artist gave her. But it was a lot more common back then, and while a little sexiness is fine, it's not always necessary or appropriate. But that's about the biggest problem I had with any of the art.
The overall reason to get these characters to brawl was functional enough, wonderfully absurd at times, and while sometimes dialogue felt a little clunky, the narration helped to tell the story quite well alongside the visuals. But the fights being more or less popularity contests voted by the fans didn't exactly balance things out very well.
I get that the average reader isn't going to want to get down to the hard science and really crunch the numbers about who'd win between certain characters, and probably couldn't do it without some level of bias, but really? Wolverine beating Lobo? Sure, he's tough and he's got a healing factor, but he can still be knocked out, especially by someone who's given Superman a hard time. There wasn't a more equitable DC opponent for the old knucklehead? And the best opponent you can think of to pit against a born and bred Amazon warrior was the X-Men's Weather Lady? How'd she stand up to Diana kicking her in the head?
Seriously, was Miss Marvel too busy to help save her universe? Or Rogue, for that matter? Or did Marvel just need a couple easy wins and to heck with Wonder Woman's superior fighting skills?
I've previously brought up how there may be some allegorical elements to the entire story, between each universe bro thinking they're just better than the other, speaking to how crazy loyal some fans feel, to parts of each universe found in the other, possibly hinting to how each publisher quote-unquote copies from the other, intentionally or otherwise. It could also be argued that the merging of the brothers reflects how some have felt over the years that the two companies should just merge into one in real life. Yet, to take that idea further, I think the conclusion of the brothers getting along and admitting to each other's positives means they're fine as separate entities. In fact, that may have factored into the likely intentional move that they never really specified which universe Access originated in. But then it never really mattered in the end, did it?
And while I'll admit to a bit of curiosity to the question of which hero would win in a fight against another hero from another universe, because there is a bit of entertainment value there, I don't think that's where this series really shines.
I found it so much more satisfying after they'd fought each other, merged together, and separated. The heroes not only worked together against their enemies, but against each other's most formidable interstellar tyrants. DC heroes fighting Thanos, Marvel heroes fighting Darkseid. That's definitely something that could have used another couple of pages worth of panels.
So if you fancy a concise story that doesn't take itself too seriously and aren't too put off by some design choices of the era or which character would win what fight, you'll probably have a lot of fun with this. And the best part, no New 52. I'm the Angry Spork, and man, have I got issues.